Pretty looking people, but I can tell you people, they were the devil's children. Body of...
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Well, before plunging in with anything else, I am going to read out something that Michelle from Chicago has said, because she's one of several people who have contacted me and said, "Hello, I am wondering if any date has been set yet for the October Afternoon with Lady C event. Please let us know so overseas travel arrangements can be made. Thank you so much." Michelle from Chicago, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, the date has been set. It is Sunday, the 19th of October. Okay? So, I look forward to seeing you if you're coming. Very exciting. I love it when people come from all over the world. It's so wonderful. I cannot tell you. I only hope, though, that you will find it worthwhile. So you've got to identify yourself when you come, and I've got to give you a special glass of champagne afterwards. Okay? Thank you so much. Now, China Grandma says, "I am so fed up listening to the latest lies of Harry and Meghan. The USA is enduring story after story of a woman claiming to have carried Archie and Lilibet. Isn't the line of succession worth confirming or denying? DNA evidence of royal bloodline?" And I will read out what Patricia Francis also says. Then I will answer both questions in one. Dear Lady C, here in the US, all the internet sites are lit up with two things. The first is that the surrogate Meghan used is speaking out, stating the duo broke their agreement with her. She states that she is the biological mother of both children. The sites state the palace is aware. The second story is that Harry's mental health records have been breached and leaked. They state that Meghan is behind both to set Harry up as the victim, and she could then be seen as the struggling savior. It stated that the doctor's diagnostic notes could be used in her divorce. What are you hearing? Well, I am aware of the stories that are sort of all over the internet in the United States about some woman who claims to be the surrogate. I would prefer to go on the record with no opinion at this juncture as to the credibility of the stories. Notice how I am putting that. You know, when you're dealing with people's lives and serious matters, and things that have the potential to have far-reaching consequences for a 1,000-year-old institution, as well as the lives of many of the people involved, it behooves you to tread with caution. Now, I know what I think, and I know what the various options of the various situations are. And I am very attached to my money, and I do not intend to be sucked or suckered in to anything that could cause me to suffer a loss financially. I hope I'm not being too opaque. I hope you're hearing what I'm saying very clearly. As for Harry's mental health records being breached, good luck. Sorry, good luck. If they have been breached, they are in breach of the HIPAA laws in the United States of America. Anybody who uses them would fall foul of the HIPAA laws. They not only have strong financial penalties, you can end up in a jail. Also, it would be very stupid of Meghan to try to leak Harry's medical records, because they wouldn't make her seem more noble than she is. They would simply make it very much more obvious than it already is. The dear, sweet Megsy baby was taking advantage. Licky, I'm just so fabulous. And I'm just the most wonderful, absolutely marvelous, just phantasmagoric bomb that ever landed in manhood. I make when Harry met Sally look tame. It would be disastrous for her reputation, but that has more credibility, if only because it shows yet again what absolutely shocking judgment Meghan has. So let's leave that at that. I suspect, though, that both stories are internet phantasmagoria. The internet, as does the mainstream media, they both proliferate with much misinformation and disinformation. And anybody who is naive enough to think that everything you hear or everything you read is going to turn out to be accurate should think again. Much of it is balderdash. Balderdash. Cats are cool, says. I love some of these names. Dear Lady C, there are reports that Netflix is not renewing the Markle's contract. What do your bongo brongo drums say? My bongo drums, to those of you who have been following this show for some time, will know that my bongo drums have been telling me for a year that the contract was in jeopardy and that it was either not going to renew at all or it was then going to renew at very unfavorable rates, knockdown rates that Meghan would find unacceptable in terms of her ambitions. Nothing has changed. I make the point that all these stories that Netflix has totally dumped her could be planted to make people look ridiculous when Netflix comes up with a paltry deal. My understanding is Netflix and the Harkles or the Markles or the Heroldians or the Sussexes, however you want to refer to them, are still in negotiations because although Meghan has proven to be an absolute nightmare and Harry has turned out to be even worse, not that he's so much of a nightmare to deal with, but as somebody, and not Bill Simmons, but somebody used the F word to say, not that he was an effing grifter, but that he's so effing dumb that, and that dealing with him was just an absolute nightmare, and that she is, and again they use the F word, witch, but began with B, and that she is so arrogant and overbearing and insufferable that they rarely allows dealing with her. However, you know, especially in Hollywood, many people will swim with sharks if they think it's going to make them some bucks. So my bongo drums are telling me what they have told me all along, that there is no real appetite for a renewal of a contract with them, but that Ted Sarandon has been pushing for some form of a continuing association that would save his face and Meghan and Harry's face. Will they get her for nickels and dimes? You bet they will. If they proceed as things are evidently taking their course. They don't want, I am told, to have a total severance because they are mindful of the fact that when, as far as they're concerned, it's not if, it's when. As far as I'm concerned, it's if, not when. The marriage comes asunder, they want to be there to mop up. However, there is another complicating factor. They were only ever interested in Harry and Meghan because of their status as royals. They have become pariah royals. However, the king is now professionally in bed with Netflix. And Netflix was always going to go with head honcho instead of small fry. So there's that element as well, that they do not want to sully any relationship with the king or the hopes that they have of a relationship with the next king. And of course they realize, well, you can't choose between, let me rephrase that. They realize that the choice is, and they're taking it, between the biggies, because they're not jeopardizing the possibilities. And also, the king himself has been clever, as have his advisors, in getting into bed with Netflix, because that has disincentivized Netflix from having a strong continuing relationship with Harry and Meghan. So I hope that answers the question. As with much in life, it's a lot more layered than people seem to realize. I know the mainstream media would like you to believe that everything is black and white. No, most things are shades of grey. And certainly when the entertainment companies are involved, they are going to go with the bigger stars, and the bigger stars are always the resident royals as opposed to the dispossessed pariah royals. I hope that answers the question. Uma Bell says, Lady C, WEF, I don't know what these initials mean. Sorry, I really don't know. It is very important that people don't abbreviate, that they spell things out, because I'm afraid I am not one for abbreviations. King Charles is using the royal ROTA and corrupt tabloids in the UK to slam Prince William, to guilt him into getting darling boy Harry back into the fold. William is the patsy. Charles was the same for Camilla, to rehabilitate her at the expense of Diana. Charles succeeded, so he is up to his old tricks again, to rehabilitate Harry at William's expense, in my honest opinion. That one I know, IMHO. But WEF, I have no idea what that means. That's Umabel, a very interesting take on it. That seems to be becoming a very popular take. I would actually say it's rather more of a populistic take than a realistically accurate take. Because the fact of the matter is, the king is not doing what the royal ROTA would like you to believe the king is doing. The king is not getting stories planted at William's expense so that Harry will have an incentive to come back. It's the royal ROTA who are, and they represent the main newspaper and media companies in this country. And it is in their interest to keep the pot boiling, to keep the soup bubbling over. And that's what they are doing. It is not in the king's interest to have the constant speculation. Think about it for a second. If the king were going to have a rapprochement, and incidentally, several people have pointed out to me that now all of the journalists have all of a sudden started to use rapprochement, and several people are saying that they've got it from me. Well, I have to say, presumably at least one or two of them are sufficiently well educated as to know what rapprochement meant. And so, did they get it from me? I'm not going to claim credit for that. If you want to claim credit on my behalf, I'm not going to discourage you, but I'm not claiming credit for that. It doesn't stack up. What does stack up is that certain journalists, and I'm not going to mention any names, but they promote themselves as being very well connected as a result of their friendships or former friendships with past or present royals. And they represent various companies who dine out on the royals and make a significant sum of money from the royals, and who have had legal problems with the royals, some of which are still ongoing. They have what they regard as accurate information about the health problems of the king. I happen to know what some of them have been saying, because they have been saying them to people I know. And they've not got the right end of the stick, so to speak. And some of them think that the king's lifespan, and this is very indecorous and indelicate, so I want to handle it as delicately as possible. They think the king's lifespan is rather shorter than those with accurate information about the king's true condition believed to be the case. So they are already setting up situations because they want to see a reconciliation. They want and they understand that Harry and Meghan would create absolute havoc, and that Harry and Meghan would be leaking to them and would be leaking through their cohorts to them. Not necessarily directly to them, but through their cohorts to them. And they will all of a sudden have their pot a boiling and loads of juice and pepper and all sorts of fabulous things in the pot to flavor it and make them create absolute havoc with the king's peace of mind, with the king's privacy, with the king's well-being, with they're trying also to cause problems between William and the king. Some of them are deliberately trying to cause problems because some of them don't like Camilla, and some of them don't like Camilla for reasons which I'm not going to go into because I don't want to make it obvious who I am speaking about. I'm not incidentally speaking about one journalist. I'm speaking about more than one. But if I say one or two things more, you're going to very quickly figure out at least one of the people I'm speaking about. And that individual's information is, shall we say, misguided and unfounded. And I certainly hope that he has not been informed as to the realities of the situation. So I leave it at that for the moment, but it's not what you think it is. To wrap it up, neither Charles nor Camilla nor William nor Catherine is behind any of this. Harry and Meghan are behind some of it, and some of the journalists are behind it as well, because they want to be able to have fodder with which to stuff their figurative faces. Some of them are real pigs, let me tell you. I know, I've crossed swords with one or two. B. Sale says, election interference is a problem worldwide, with a multitude of countries being impacted. The perpetrators must be identified and brought to justice no matter who they are, or civilization will suffer the consequences. As the Democrats so frequently point out, no one is above the law. It's about time the co-conspirators from all parties are held to account. Well, if you are referring to the interference in the United States of America, I think I will actually answer this briefly, because the last question that I'm going to address is about the situation in the United States of America at the moment. And I am very fortunate. I have the honour of being friendly with Jonathan Haslam, who has written Hubris, The Origins of Russia's War Against Ukraine. He is the world's leading expert on Ukraine. He is a fellow of the British Academy. He is the Emeritus Professor of History of International Relations at Cambridge University and a Life Fellow of Corpus Christi College, Cambridge. He has covered in this book, which was published in, let me get to it. It was published in, where was it? When was it published? I can't see it. Oh, yes. It was published in 2024. And he covers extensively from page 228 about certain activities that took place in the United States of America in 2016. And I will actually ask Sean at the end of this episode to publish the photographs that I'm going to take of those bits of the book that refer to this. But I don't want to bog us down with stuff that is very heavy in the middle of this. I prefer to do it at the end where people can just skip over. Okay? So without further ado, I will then plunge in to what Claire Violatu says. I was lucky enough to catch sight of William, Catherine, and their family as their yacht dropped into our village in Kefalonia 2 days ago. What a wonderful sight to see the jet skis lined up and the family having such fun away from the shore. As I stood on the pier watching on, I couldn't help but feel pleased for them and their family, whilst also lamenting how much Harry and his wife have thrown away in their grand pursuit of fickle Hollywood fame. Now, what is really interesting about this is that there has been practically no attention given to it in the United Kingdom. It's not been covered because the mainstream media abide by a certain protocol whereby the activities of the royals when they are on private holidays are not covered and their privacy is respected. But some of this is being covered internationally. And I can tell you from my inquiries that William and Catherine and the children were lent the rather splendid yacht of Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed. He is an Emirati politician. He was the foreign minister in 2006. He's been the deputy prime minister of the United Arab Emirates, one of the 4 deputy prime ministers since 2009. He was one of the signatories to the Abraham Accords on behalf of the United Arab Emirates. He was born in 1972, so he's a little bit older than William, but not that much. He has a degree in political science from the United Arab Emirates University. He has warned against colonial actions in Syria, but he is very much not only a royal, but a friend of other royals and of the West. He has an honor from the United Kingdom. He is an honorary Knight Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George, which is quite an outstanding honor. So there have been some rather snide remarks. Oh, well, William and Catherine are borrowing a yacht from a rich man. So what? I mean, they're colleagues, they're fellow royals. Fortunately for William and Catherine, Sheikh Abdullah happens to have a yacht, a personal yacht. And he's been a good enough friend to lend it to them. Why wouldn't they avail themselves of it? I mean, Charles and Diana and William and Harry used to avail themselves of the Alexander, which was owned by Monsieur Latsis, for example. And the Queen, late Queen, availed herself of the use of someone else's yacht here. So why not? I mean, the niggardly attitude that some people have is truly extraordinary. Pick. They can't see anybody prosper without trying to somehow deflate it and make something dirty of something that really is not dirty and is actually perfectly clean. And I think good on them. And I gather they have been having a wonderful time. And incidentally, her parents are there as well. And why people would possibly object to it. And of course, the Republicans, not American Republican Party, British Republicans who want a republic. Oh, they're up in arms about the fact that William and Catherine and the children have been given the use of a yacht by an ally of this nation and a friend of the family. What's wrong with that? I see nothing wrong with it. I think everybody should be in the position to be given such wonderful presents, don't you? And I certainly don't bemoan the fact that other people have privileges and gifts that I don't have. I think that's called envy, don't you? Paul Warner says, a friend of mine was an undergardener at Highgrove. The pay was low, but they trained him well, so he was able to become a head gardener for another wealthy estate. Wages were low, but it was living free board with 3 meals a day. Alice says, if a gardener was career-minded, they would accept lower wages to work in one of the most prestigious gardens in England. They would work for a period of time, learn from the best, and then capitalize on that experience, in my opinion. Jenny Bond is rot. And Heidi Maggs says, good grief. Just the lodging and meals are worth a lot over the course of a year. Absolutely. I tried actually to point out to one of our nannies who was bemoaning the fact that she was not on presidential wages, that when she added up all the perks, she was doing far better than she thought. And I also pointed out to her, I said, and this would have been nearly 30 years ago, this would have been 1999. I said, you can afford on your salary to buy £150 sneakers to send to your family. I can't afford to buy £150 sneakers for my children or myself. I said, so if you consider the realities, maybe you should actually start to count your blessings instead of complaining. Well, she didn't, and she was duly dispatched. But I will continue with the observation from Heidi Meeks. Just the lodging and meals are worth a lot over the course of a year. This is something I've never heard, but in truth, I don't know much about Highgrove as an American. I really like that it's not only organically run, but is charitable as well. I just automatically discounted the story about gardeners leaving. I have no illusions that the royal family are perfect, but they seem to receive a lot of uncalled for negative stories. And with Harry and Meghan out in the open with their vengeance and spite, I kind of just figure they're somehow always involved or are instigating gossip. Well, what can I say? By and large, what has happened is that once Charles became king, a lot of the staff have left and moved on to bigger and better things. Yes, starter gardeners don't get great salaries, and no member of the royal household that I know gets, I should say know of, gets paid, shall we say, Condé Nast in the good glory days scale of wages, but they are paid respectably, not on the high side, but when you consider all the perks, it actually adds up to quite a reasonable wage. And then they also have the kudos of having worked with the royals and are therefore able to move on to bigger and better things. Half my friends have butlers that started out at Buckingham Palace. Let me leave it at that for the moment. And also to say, my sometime butler was also somebody who worked with one of the royals. There's no better recommendation than having worked with one of the royals. And to have worked for the king, but of course, Rupert Murdoch's organization does need to create havoc for the royal family. It has done it for years and it continues to do so. And people don't have to accept a job. They don't like the terms and conditions of the employer, and they don't want the employment. Find another job. It's as simple as that. Wind Song says, I have not kept up with the bombardment of PR regarding Prince Harry and his so-called attempt at reconciliation, except to notice that there are two camps, one of which promotes the idea of reconciliation, and the other scorning that view and stating that the attempt to reach his father is nothing more than his concerns about access to more money. What is your opinion, if you don't mind sharing it, Lady C? I think you're referring to the meeting of Tobin Andre, the Mains girl, Meredith Mains, and Liam McGrath. Those two are Harry and Meghan's PR people, and Tobin Andre is the King's communications secretary. First of all, if they're going to be discussing anything about reconciliation, it's not going to be with the King's press secretary and their PR people. It would be at private secretary level with Sir Clive Alderton. So right there, wrong professions for anything to do with reconciliation. The fact of the matter is that Harry and Meghan knew that they were in big trouble with Netflix, something I have been trying to point out for some time. And they know still that although Netflix has made it clear, and this is something the press seem to have not taken on board, that Netflix has made it plain that they might end up doing something with Meghan. They don't want to do anything with Harry, but with Meghan on an ad hoc basis. But by and large, it will be for nickels and dimes. And if that should happen, Meghan is in a position to say, oh, you see, everybody said Netflix was totally finished with me, and Netflix isn't. Well, my understanding of what happened was that she was on a desperate course, and so was he, to convince Netflix that they are so newsworthy that Netflix should consider not only extending but renewing the agreement for far more money than Netflix has made it clear they are prepared to do. And my understanding is that the initiative for the meeting came from Harry and Meghan's side. Meredith Mains is the one who flew over from the United States for the meeting. Let's remember all of that. Meredith Mains is unknown in this country. She's pretty much unknown everywhere, actually. But all of a sudden, the press knew exactly who she was and when she was arriving and how to photograph her and who she was and to recognize her. Come on. I mean, let's do the math. 2 and 2 do make 4. They don't make 27 or 95 or even just 1. And I think the meeting was orchestrated by Meredith Mains to encourage Netflix to consider a renewal at a good rate. And after all that publicity, what has happened? Netflix has leaked the fact that they are not renewing the contract. And if they have any other contract with Meghan and Harry, it's on an ad hoc basis. And let's remember, Harry also went to Angola. All of this was to encourage Netflix to renew. Reconciliation, give me a break. Having said that, the mainstream media, it is in their vested interest to try to plant stories which, even though they know the royal family is not at this stage minded to embrace either Harry or Meghan, because any embrace will result in Gayle King and Oprah Winfrey and Charlotte Griffiths finding out about it and leaking the way everything else gets leaked, because they are sieves. And there is no incentive for the royal family to keep on being sucked into this sick game. And on the other hand, there is a strong incentive for the media to continue to create incidents so that they will keep the pot bubbling over. And we will end with what Susie says. Susie R.W. says, Lady C, it is not a matter of if Obama suspected there was Russian interference. The issue is that he concocted the Russian interference story and created the Steele dossier along with Hillary. And yes, he can be arrested just as Trump was, whether sitting president or former president. Tulsi Gabbard declassified documents that exposed Obama's plan for all of this, and Comey and his minions carried it out. All of them should be held accountable. This is seditious conspiracy, not treason, which is equally horrible and punishable to the full extent of the law. Well, that's all very interesting. And many people have written about this. And I am going to simply point out that all of this, as I said earlier, is covered in hubris, starting on page 228. First heading is the conspiracy against Trump, and that goes on for 2 pages. Then there is presidential uncertainty, which goes on for another few pages. And we will stop it where it says Trump disappoints Putin. And I am going to post photographs of these pages of the book. And none of this is new. I know that some people are saying it is deflection from the Epstein matter. I don't think there is any need to deflect from that with this. I think you will find ultimately that the Epstein matter has legs of its own. I don't want to get sucked in too deeply to American politics, because everybody in America is so rabidly partisan, with few exceptions, that I prefer not to get sucked in, beyond saying that the observation which has been made by several people, that if this story ends up having legs, it's going to make Watergate look like a baby's bath. And sadly, there is, according to Jonathan Haslam, who is one of the world's great historians, there is ample evidence. He says, and I read out the first sentence or two, on the 26th July 2016, at the high point of the campaign, Obama was briefed by CIA Director John Brennan about an alleged approval by Hillary Clinton of a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by Russian security services. Now, Mr. Steele, Christopher Steele, who was the former British MI6 officer, had once served as second undersecretary at the British Embassy in Moscow. And he concocted an awful lot. And the whole situation is deeply, deeply murky. And going off what Jonathan Haslam said in 2016, about 2016 in 2024, and nobody has disputed anything that he said because it's all indisputable. It's all a matter of record. Obama assisted Hillary Clinton in trying to have her elected as president by destroying Donald Trump's chances. I actually used to think that Obama was superbly elegant and had a wonderful personality and was a study in grace as well as graciousness. I think beyond that, I'll say no more, except I hope you have found this program interesting. If you have, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Thank you so much. Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care.